Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. If you've been listening for a while, you probably noticed that something is different. And if you're brand new, this episode is a perfect place to start. This podcast used to be called the Being Better Everyday Podcast, and it was for over 2 years. And for a long time, that name made a lot of sense. It reflected the season I was in, curious, growing, asking better questions, and trying to figure out how to build a life and a business that felt intentional. But lately, that name started to feel really heavy. And in this phase of my life, being a mom, working full-time in corporate America, and growing my business on the side, the idea of being better every day began to feel like pressure instead of progress. Like any other standard that you have to meet in America, it's another thing to optimize, another quiet message that rest, steadiness, or simply being enough wasn't sufficient. So today, I want to talk about why I'm officially closing that chapter and why this podcast is now called Coffee and Conversions. Welcome to Coffee and Conversions, the podcast for millennial moms building something meaningful alongside real life. We're talking web design, SEO, Pinterest, and organic marketing, the behind-the-scenes systems to help your business get seen without taking over your life. I'm Julie, the founder of PNW Designs. I'm a Minnesota mom working full-time in corporate America, actually in finance, while growing my business on the side. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that growth doesn't come along from doing more. It comes from doing what actually works. Most of my business ideas start with coffee, and this podcast is all about strategies that actually convert, hence Coffee and Conversions. It's not about hustle for the sake of hustle, and it's not about pretty things that don't perform. So grab your coffee, pop in your headphones, and let's get into today's episode. So this episode isn't a rebrand for the sake of rebranding. It's about naming what's changed and choosing something that actually fits the life that I'm living in now. So before I tell you where the podcast is going, I want to talk about where it's been. I have been recording the Being Better Everyday podcast for over 2 years now. And those episodes, apparently I don't have English today. Those episodes weren't about mastering all the things. It was about exploring and learning and, like I said, just taking small steps to be better every day. In those episodes, over the last 75 episodes, we've talked about curiosity. We've talked about asking questions without pretending to have it all figured out. Learning alongside other women and other business owners. We've talked about hormones and health because that's been a huge part of my journey in the last 2 years. Nervous system regulation, motherhood shifts, personal routines, what it's like working in corporate America, what it's like trying to grow a business while also working full-time, what it's like being a breadwinner. A huge thread through the first 75 episodes was certainly about wanting more, but also wanting peace. Being ambitious, because I am ambitious, but trying not to burn out. Building habits that supported my life and instead of consuming it. And obviously, if you were here since day one, episode 1 is still like by far my most listened episode. I have talked about my planner business, which then ebbed into what it stands today in PNW Designs. And things that I have talked about, like side hustles, boundaries, energy, what it feels like to want to grow, like that's not going anywhere. But the podcast is and was built for women trying to hold multiple identities at once. And again, especially recently, personally for me, being better every day has felt a little heavy. It wasn't supposed to be about self-improvement in a harsh way. It was about learning from each other, sharing stories, normalizing that growth isn't linear. I've had tons of guest episodes also focused on business, about shared experiences, about what they do to keep their head on straight while they are trying to run a business. I've had, friends on talking about corporate America. I've had friends on talking about what it's like to be a mom of 3 of teenagers. It was never about toxic self-help, but the culture around self-improvement, especially in 2025 and as we go into 26, has shifted, and that has caused me to feel uncomfortable about the name. Recently, being better has stopped feeling so neutral. The internet got loud. If you did listen to episode 1, you know that I have had a non-linear path with food and eating. high school and the early college years was difficult for me. And since we are back in the realm of skinny talk, which is what we grew up, but if you're an elder millennial, that's what you grew up with. Like that body talk, optimization culture, constant improvement, all of that has hit really hard in 25 for me. And that pressure of constant self-improvement, of knowing that I am not where I used to be and that I'm not seen as skinny optimal or whatever, like that has added a negative connotation to the Being Better Everyday podcast for me. So I don't want it to be about always fixing yourself or never arriving or never resting, because I'm continuously learning and working on resting and slowing down on breathing. I'm in my yoga moment for that reason. And yes, I absolutely still believe in being successful, clearly, but I don't want it to be pressure. And with the added layer of social media, with productivity culture, with body conversations and skinny talk, I just realized that I didn't want to build a space that even unintentionally reinforced the idea that we were always behind, that we're always fixing ourselves, or that we're always one habit away from being enough, because that is something I personally struggle with. And I don't want, like, that wasn't the message of the podcast to start with, but I also don't want it to be an unintentional or a subconscious message along the way. So we are fixing it. Quick pause, because if Pinterest feels confusing or like it's way too much work, then this is for you. Create It, Pin It, Let It Work, my Pinterest marketing course, is built for business owners who want traffic without living on social media. You get done-for-you Pinterest templates, a step-by-step video training, so you're not guessing on what to create or how to use it. And here's the difference. This isn't just generic Pinterest tips. I teach real SEO strategy, 4 different approachable ways, so that your content works harder and it lasts longer, and you can actually use this approach to create your long-form content, not just the Pinterest pins. It's half the cost of the leading Pinterest course without cutting corners, and it's designed to fit into your real life, from a mom recording in the cracks of my own day. If you want Pinterest working quietly in the background while focusing on your business, this is it. Learn more at buypwdesigns.com/Pinterest-marketing-course or linked in the show notes. Now back to the show. So why coffee and conversions? First of all, I suck at naming things. That is why my business is called P&W Designs. Pogum and Wenslake is my maiden name and my married name. That is what P and W stand for, if you didn't know. And I had asked Mr. Chat to help me brainstorm ideas for my email list, because I wanted my email list to have its own identity and to really focus on what I am really passionate about, which is web design, SEO, and branding. Branding to me is almost like a secret baby. Well, that sounds bad, but it's something that I have it's so personal for me. It is something that brings me almost so much joy that I don't like talking about it. I don't know how to describe it, but so I do tend to focus on the organic marketing side of things, web design, SEO, Pinterest. And I am also obsessed with coffee. I have coffee every single day. I have tried giving it up. I have tried giving up Starbucks and Caribou. For those in Minnesota, you know what Caribou is. For those outside of Minnesota, I mean Pete's Coffee. So for me, coffee represents that we're a mom and we need the caffeine. It represents ideally slower mornings. In 2025, I stopped removing the pressure around working out in the morning, or at least early morning. I love meeting business owners for coffee and just chatting and nerding out about things. I love having girl time. Again, anyone who knows me knows that I will go off and have business tangents and just nerd out on stuff all the time. So for me, that's what the coffee represents, is it's that slow time where we can talk and meet over a cup of coffee. And conversions is what it sounds like. It's that results matter, and that, again, as an Enneagram 8, as somebody who is direct inherently, you will hear me say time and time again, hire whoever you want from a web designer perspective. If you love their aesthetic, great. But if that web designer is not a specialist in SEO, then you need to separately hire for SEO and or a copywriter who does SEO. Because, and obviously, ideally, you do me, which is like a combo, web designer and SEO. But I literally, as I'm recording this, I got off the call with somebody who had hired me for an SEO audit. She's having her web designer, who was already engaged because they were trading services, do the web design. And this person, web designer, was like, well, I don't understand why she has so much copy or that you need these words on your website. And I'm like, it's SEO. And then I looked at the technical side and like, even though I had tried to explain it, it still was messed up. So I'm going to have to go back in and correct it so that she can launch successfully and get results. And it's just, to me, it can't even be separated. Like, if you want to be seen organically, you have to focus on SEO. And it's not that complicated. And my hope through this podcast is that it becomes approachable to you, that you can feel like you can do it on your own, or get the DIY SEO course that I promote, that I'm an affiliate for, or take little tidbits to at least know to ask the right questions, or feel empowered to at least look at your own results and not feel like it's this overwhelming black hole that you can't afford to get help on, because it's not. And this podcast will continue to be about organic growth. It'll be about SEO, web design, Pinterest, branding. It'll be about the systems that help me run my business in 20 hours or 15 hours a week. It'll be about strategy that fits real life. So it's not always going to be about organic marketing, but it's going to be about things that, like, where I'm at in life, what is working for me, what is not. Certainly it's going to be about like what works and what doesn't, and knowing that, you know, this is just my opinion and you may have your opinion, and that's okay. Like, not that I don't care if you have a different opinion. I'm not offended if you have a different opinion. Like, this is my opinion. This is my education. This is my research. I have spent a lot of time over the last 2 years growing and making sure that I'm educated on this, and I will continue to be, because I've seen the results, and I've seen people grow so fast by having their website set up correctly that, like, I want people to convert. I want people to be able to grow, and this is a way to do that. So again, podcast isn't about doing more. It's about doing what works. Also, always going to have my dog in the background. If you watch on YouTube, you will see my black lab. He always joins on the podcast episodes. Generally, he's quiet, but you never know. Because again, my podcast is not about being perfect. It's about being real, raw, and like educational, but also the fact that, like, I am somebody who just tends to record on a Saturday morning, sometimes without makeup, sometimes with my hair up in a bun. And I don't, like, not that I don't care, but it's at the same time, it's like, it's real. I'm not perfect, and I'm okay with that. And you should be too, because, you know, it's not like me just trying to sell you something, right? It's me wanting you to grow, and it is so gratifying to see that. This podcast is for the women who want to understand, like, the steps to grow your own business organically. And what I mean by organic is non-paid. I don't tend to focus on paid ads. I don't tend to focus on, well, any sort of paid marketing, because I'm not an expert in it. I should totally have guests on that do that. I just haven't thought of that. So if you're listening to this and you are an expert in paid ads, reach out, because we can chat. Anyway, my goal is that it's not tech bro jargon. It's not hustle culture. It's not feeling like you have to be a different person to succeed. It's about taking, again, still small steps every day. That's what Being Better Every Day was about originally. But it is about making sure that, you know, you have the right tools in your toolbox, and that you're not wasting money, because money is precious. That's my finance brain coming in. So here's the important thing. The content of this podcast is not suddenly changing. If you look back at my most recent episodes, they are very similar to this path. Like I said, it was the name that wasn't in alignment. So we've got a new intro, we've got a new outro, we've got no commercials recorded, but ultimately the episodes, the content, not much is changing in that direction. So as we look into 2026, I do have, I think, my first 6 months outlined of podcast episodes. We will be talking about web designer red flags, Pinterest keyword strategy, local SEO, organic marketing going into 2026, and what I am doing to make sure my website continues to grow and get seen. I will still have guests on all the time, or not all the time, but as much as I have the time to coordinate because that's a lot of work if you are in the podcasting world. Would love to have some of my ex-clients on. I plan on having some other people on the I Was Guests podcast on. That part stays. And what is changing is, again, the container around it, the name, the intro, the framing. Those who are now better aligned with what this podcast has already become, a place for honest, understandable strategy and no tech bro jargon. No pressure to optimize every inch of your life, just clear guidance on how to grow a business in a way that fits real life. So if you're here for practical marketing strategies, SEO, Pinterest, and websites that actually work, honest conversations about growth without the hustle culture, then you're already in the right place. This isn't a reinvention, it's a refinement, and the goodness of what we've been building here stays the same. This just gets a name that fits better for this season of life. So it's kind of a conversation that supports you. Make sure you're surprised. So if this is the kind of conversation that supports you, make sure you are subscribed, stick around, share it with a friend, help me grow this podcast in 26. I would love that. This is Coffee and Conversions Now, and I'm really glad you're here. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Coffee and Conversions. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate every single person who listens. If this episode helped you think differently about your business, I'd love if you left a rating and review or shared it with a friend who is running a business alongside you, because community is everything. It's the easiest way to help this podcast reach more women who want a strategy that actually works. You can find links, resources, and anything mentioned in today's episode in the show notes. For more tools, services, and behind-the-scenes strategy, head over to buypwdesigns.com. And if you want to peek into my real life, corporate job, mom life, running a business, and really just like the true me, you can find me at Instagram over at julie.pwdesigns, and I hang out there most days. Until next time, keep on building intentionally, and I will see you back here at Coffee and Conversions.